That 16-character secure password you spent 5 minutes creating? Well, a standard GPU cluster can crack it in less time than it takes for you to finish your morning coffee. You see, you're sitting there in a cafe, sipping a latte, feeling quite secure because you added a capital letter and a special character to your childhood pet's name, right? You think you've built a digital fortress. But I'm here to tell you that whilst you were feeling safe, the landscape changed completely. We've been conditioned to believe in the illusion of complexity. We think adding a 1 or an exclamation mark at the end makes a bloody massive difference. It doesn't. To a modern brute force algorithm, your clever little variation is just a predictable pattern in a sea of data. It's not a locked door. It's a wet paper bag. Look, think about it like this. You're playing a game of chess against a machine that can calculate 1 billion moves every single second. It doesn't matter how brilliant you think your password is if the machine has already solved the game. Actually, most of us are just reusing fragments of patterns from leaked databases that have been circulating on the dark web for years. Silicon Valley told us that longer meant stronger, but they forgot to mention that hardware was scaling far faster than human imagination. I mean, a single high-end GPU can churn through millions of combinations per second. When a hacker links a dozen of them together in a cluster, your secret code is quite literally an open book. This is the reality of the digital arms race. You're fighting a war with a wooden stick whilst the other side has a drone swarm. And here's the most daunting part. You're probably using that same secure password for your bank, your email, and your socials. One crack, and your entire digital identity collapses like a house of cards. The machine is not just guessing. It's winning.
The answer is as cynical as it gets. It's about offloading liability. See, by setting these arbitrary standards, the corporation builds a legal shield. If your account is drained because some script kiddie in a basement guessed your clever variation of your dog's name, the company can just shrug and say you didn't follow the best practices. They've shifted the burden of security from their multi-billion-dollar infrastructure directly onto your shoulders. You're the one who failed the system, not the other way around. We've been sold the illusion of an impenetrable wall, whilst the gates were left wide open. We spend our lives memorizing strings of gibberish that a modern GPU can shred in seconds, all to satisfy a compliance checklist that was outdated before you even graduated high school. But as daunting as this corporate gaslighting is, there is a much darker layer to this story. Because whilst we were busy adding exclamation points to our passwords, the hackers found a way to bypass the need for a password entirely. And it involves a corner of the dark web that most people don't even know exists. Welcome to the reality of the cryptographic heist. See, most of you actually believe that when you type a password into a login box, the website saves those characters in some neat little folder. They don't. Look, they store a hash, which is essentially just a one-way digital fingerprint of your data. The theory is that if a hacker steals the database, they only get the fingerprints, not the keys. But that theory, it's ancient history. Enter the rainbow table. Think of this as a massive, pre-computed cheat sheet containing billions of passwords and their corresponding fingerprints.
Yet, as sophisticated as these digital heists are, the most dangerous part of this ecosystem isn't the software, it's the hardware. Because while we're all debating the strength of our characters, a new breed of technology is being deployed that makes even the most complex password irrelevant. Look, here is the uncomfortable truth. While you're sitting there trying to remember if your childhood pet's name had a capital letter or a special character, the memorized password is dead. Or, well, at least it should be.
It's a relic from a dial-up era that has absolutely no business existing in an age of automated brute force. Think about it. You're currently trying to win a mathematical war using a blunt stick, while your opponent is wielding a bloody massive supercomputer. Look, I need you to stop thinking like a user. See, a user thinks about convenience. A user wants to get into their email in 3 seconds flat, right? But a target? A target thinks about the surface area of their attack. And make no mistake, that is exactly what you are. You are a collection of credentials waiting to be harvested and sold for the price of a cheap coffee on some dark web forum. Now, the alternative is already here. And quite literally, it's the only way forward. I'm talking about hardware security keys and the transition to passkeys. You see, these systems take the human element out of the equation entirely. Instead of a string of text that can be phished, guessed, or leaked from some garbage database, you have a cryptographic handshake. It's a physical token, or a biometric check that says, I am here and I have the physical key. It doesn't matter how many GPU farms a hacker has in a basement in Siberia. They cannot compute their way through a physical device sitting right there on your desk.